Comet ISON, Elenin, Tyche, Nemesis, the Winged Biblical Destroyer, Planet X, Niburu, Heracoblis, that sort of thing. Alright. I'm going to be doing, this is a really quick thumbnail sketch of the history of this subject, and it's not going to be in the correct order because that's not a really good way to tell it. But in the 1980s, infrared astronomical satellites, IRAS, found no other planets. Period, full stop. They didn't discover any of them under any of these other names. Because people keep mushing them together, and I don't care. The point is, that's for looking for brown dwarfs and planets and asteroids. In 1983, Robert Sutton Harrington and another person came up with a version of the Planet X hypothesis. This is based on a measurement of the apparent masses of the main 9 planets, as they were thought of at the time. I still like Pluto. And noticing that one of the orbits of one of the planets didn't match exactly what was expected for the mass of it. It's kind of a funny outcome here. But anyway, in 1992, the need for Planet X being some object or some sort of influence, and they just called it X, you know, some unknown item out there, that vanished. Not because somebody suppressed it or anything, but because E. Miles Standish decided to take some data from the Voyager 2's flyby of Neptune in 1989 that had been done. And that ended up revising the Neptune's total mass down by 0.5%. That's all it took. And recalculated its gravitational effects. So when Neptune's newly determined mass was used against the Jet Propulsion Laboratory's developmental emiferous, I can't pronounce it, JPL-DE, the supposed discrepancies found in orbits and timings disappeared because they overestimated the mass of a planet by only 0.5%, but they did overestimate its total mass. That means its weight independent of gravity. Its mass, the total amount of matter it's composed of. It's extremely easy to do that. But anyway, on Voyager 2's flyby, because its flyby of Neptune was affected by literally only one thing, its gravitational pull, its mass, and Voyager 2 could estimate its distance very well, they were able to determine they were wrong by the mass of Neptune. It was actually slightly less heavy. So, all of a sudden, all the discrepancies they were seeing weren't discrepancies. It's just that they had the wrong number for how much Neptune weighed. By 0.5%. That's pretty dang good without actually going somewhere and doing something to measure it physically. That was literally all there was to it. After that, once they figured out that was probably it, a real simple idea came up. Check out the orbit of a planet and then use that to determine the mass. If it's not much different than what you've estimated, that's great. If it is, when in doubt, assume the orbit is actually telling you what its mass is. That's how we now understand a lot of things. But anyway, from 1997 to the year 2001, 2MASS astronomical survey failed to detect any other external planets. Nemesis, Niburu, Heracoblis, it doesn't matter. In 2011, the earlier findings of simple periodic patterns of damage on the planet from what you might assume are asteroid or comet impacts, being periodic comet showers, for instance, dislodged by some hypothetical star, were discovered to be just simple statistical artifacts because we had better data and more of it, and realized, no, they were just making a mistake because statistical averages, you have to calculate them every time you find new data, and after enough data was collected, the crater record showed no evidence for anything dislodging planets or comets to hit the planet. There is no basis in the geological record with these craters on the planet to prove that there is a periodic passage of any planet or star causing this. There might be intermittent transitions of, let's say, a star knocking something loose or whatever, but there is no regularly scheduled apocalyptic occurrence. because there isn't one. And that was figured out from the 2011 experiment testing this stuff based on the information collected from 1997 to 2001 from TUMAS. 2009 to 2011 and 2013 to 2016, the Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer, or WISE project, didn't detect anything, and it's specifically to do that. And the scales here I'm going to talk about in a minute are very, very large. Comet Elenin, 2010, discovered by a Russian astronomer named Elenin. 2011, Elenin approached the Earth slightly closer than Venus, not much closer than that, and it died approaching the Sun. It was destroyed by, it was a sun grazer. They die that way. 2012, Comet ISON basically faded 3 months after they found it, and 2013 it was declared to have been destroyed because they found no evidence of existing afterwards. It only passed near, it only passed near our orbit, but not enough for anything to hit us. The comet's tail never came near us. We were not hit with the trailing edge of a comet. That's another meme people did. The WISE survey had also ruled out any other object with characteristics like Tyche, which was another hypothesized item, by 2014, as it ruled out the possibility of any Saturn-sized object out at 10,000 astronomical units, and any Jupiter-sized object out to 26,000 astronomical units, or half a light year at that point. The astronomers that proposed the idea of Tyche, for instance, agreed that this has been disproven, and they dropped it because new evidence had showed up, and they were able to, their scientists, new evidence proved that they were wrong about their hypothesis. 2016, WF9 passed the Earth in 2017 and did nothing, and it'll do the same nothing in 2149, because all of these are things that were, oh no, we're going to die, and people play that up every year because they need you to believe them. And I'm going to quote Daza. Remember their names. These are people who have repeatedly said something's going to happen. Heck, one of them even names his channel names Niburu, Elenin, blah, 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 even though Elenin dissolved. And you have channels that post that, no, they're lying about it dissolving. No, they're not. And literally millions of people on this planet with telescopes were looking to see what would happen with it. It was naked eye visible at one point, or nearly so. This isn't a big cover-up unless you're going to invoke the meme of us having space holograms, which someone did, obviously, as well. I'd also like to point out that one of the artworks I found an archive for that's NBDVM, one of the art pieces that's supposed to be Nibiru or whatever, the winged planet people talk about, it's an artwork that was done in 2009. It's a painting. It's not a photo. Never was. The biblical destroyer, at least if you translate it, actually translate it, just reads the words, they that cause to die. It's more literally translated that way. In several passages, the word destroyer, or the word you're referring to in calling destroyer, designates a supernatural agent of destruction, or destroying angel. It's not a winged planet, it's literally an angel. By the way, angels aren't mechanically possible. Executing divine judgment, like who to smote on the firstborn in Egypt. And I want to point out that, and I'm going to bust this down really quick, Zecharia Sitchin has been criticized for many, many things. Mostly mistranslating Babylonian when you can translate Babylonian. Just flat lying, because the information was handed to him, you made a mistake. He ignored it and just kept doing it because it fit with whatever he was selling books with. And a certain, I forgot his name again, but he's a favorite of another YouTube channel, another person who wanted the electric universe idea to be the only thing important, and he's been well, he was an iconoclast. That's nice, but he didn't contribute anything. These people don't add anything to your survivability or your ability to do anything. They just give you something to argue over and change the words or names or titles every once in a while. And they predicted the end of the world in all of these years and many more. And the world did not end. And yes, they really did predict the end of the world. And people did commit suicide over this stuff. People are now trying to do damage control, saying that never happened. Anyway, to get to the point, the winged biblical destroyer that is referred to, well, why do all these cultures have this? Because human beings envy birds, and we fear flying death, and every culture has a myth about some flying monster. And to be blunt, in human history, but not necessarily our own cultural history, there were actually birds large enough to attack and kill you. And they did. They were very large. Like, I will include a link below to the comparison of the world's largest birds that existed during human lifespan, during the time that anatomically modern humans existed. It's a very real fear. And that which we fear we will either destroy or worship. Or elect again. Anyway, to be blunt, the mythos of flying angels and demons is what is referred to if you want to do that. It's not referring to a planet. Because that's absolutely stupid. No, it really is. There is no compelling reason to believe any of this. And I've even heard astronomers say, well, if there was a planet like that in the solar system, it would cause destruction everywhere. No, it wouldn't. Because there are planets like this right now in our solar system. Mars, Venus, Jupiter. They are there, and they don't actually cause destruction. The solar system, like any other thing that has a gravitational effect, if a planet falls into it, it can get stuck and be in orbit, or it can fall in and fall back out and escape. And the only conclusion anybody can come up with is, since none of this has got any timing to it that's real, and no, there isn't any alien culture that told us 20,000 years ago that this happened, and no, there aren't any ancient humans that had this sort of information and stored it anywhere, or otherwise it would just be stored and visible. And no, they didn't encode it to hide it from everybody unless you're Sitchin. The idea of some sort of catastrophe would be a one-shot. We can still have one within the next few weeks. This is not what I'm not saying that isn't going to happen. But I'm saying that people who say they can predict this, the predictive power falls with science, not pseudoscience. Pseudoscience is a salesman trick. Science is what makes the motor in your electric equipment work. It's really boring, but it works. And none of this stuff has ever. And even when scientists make these assertions, it's extremely easy to say to them, you're probably wrong, because they usually are. And at least some of them, in fact most of them, admit it. Thanks for watching, have a good day, and good luck with all that.